his ear. He's bleeding out of his ear. Get him out of here. He's bleeding out of his ear. Get him out of here. What the f*** are you walking up on?
So all of this was unfolding during a protest against police brutality outside City Hall. You can see two officers shoving the man, who is 75 years old, to the ground. He hits his head. He starts bleeding from his ear. He's laying there motionless. Police walking by. And here's the thing that is going to blow your mind. Police initially said the man tripped and fell. But then this video was released. The elderly man is in the hospital. He is in stable but serious condition. And a short time ago, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo condemned the officer's actions.
I just spoke with Mr. Gugino on the phone, who is that gentleman, who thankfully is alive. But you see that video, and it disturbs your basic sense of decency and humanity. Why? Why? Why was that necessary? Where was the threat? Older gentleman, where was the threat? And then you just walk by the person while you see blood coming from his head. And police officers walk by. It's just fundamentally offensive and frightening. It's just frightening.
WBFO reporter Mike Desmond was in Buffalo. He filmed that incident. Thanks so much for being with us, Mike.
It's nice to be here.
Can you just tell us, I mean, we see what you saw, but tell us what you saw leading up to this as this man, we see him approach police and they have this reaction.
Well, this was the end of more than 6 hours of protests here in Buffalo. And at the end, the police apparently wanted to sweep the steps of City Hall so that the few remaining protesters were no longer there. They came across the front of City Hall with helmets, clubs, some kind of a combat unit. And this gentleman, whose name I just learned, went up to one of them, and you see the sequence of what happened. Subsequently, they eventually got some medics to him, and they finally took him away in an ambulance. The difference, of course, in this incident is it was on videotape. And that's the change of this period of protests from a lot of other protests I've covered over a lot of years. The public can look and see what happened.
And that's so important because the police lied about what happened, right? They initially said he tripped and fell. I mean, after he was pushed, I guess. I don't know what it is, but they've since changed the statement. And actually, Mike, if I can just read this real quick, because the police spokesman then said once the department was made aware of other video, the commissioner immediately suspended the two men without pay and an investigation was opened up. I mean, were you surprised to learn that they were lying initially?
Well, I think they didn't realize that the video that your viewers just saw existed. They said he tripped and fell. Well, that's not what's shown on the videotape, which again is what changes this whole discussion you've been having. The public can look and see what happened.
And as people, it looked like maybe other protesters were trying to aid the man. Can you tell us what happened in kind of that melee after the officers were just walking by him?
Well, there were people, including me, saying they had to get him some help, and the officers just walked by him, and someone did shout eventually that there were medics on scene, and two medics did come up and treat him. Subsequently, EMS was called, an ambulance showed up with a couple of EMTs. They continued to treat him, and finally he was put in an ambulance and taken to Erie County Medical Center, which is our designated trauma center here. But the police screened him. At that point, I was across the street, and you could see the medics and then the EMTs working on him and trying to help out. But he was injured.
Yeah, it's so hard to watch, Mike. It's so important you got that video. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there to capture it. Honestly, it just makes us realize that so often there isn't a Mike Desmond there to capture it. So thank you so much for talking to us.
Nice to have you on. Thank you.
An NBA coach will join me live on why he fears being black in America and why protests and hashtags haven't changed anything. Plus, a disturbing look shows how many officers haven't faced consequences in the deaths of black men. And just in, as more sports leagues prepare to restart games, we're now learning that several Alabama football players have tested positive for coronavirus.